이마고 군도가 독산제 연구를 도시적인 rol을 전해서 차서 산제 군유로도 연도다 그래서 전에 식센스 땅벌서로 차서 네.
Media, media! We want justice!
the truth.
Media, media.
Tell the truth.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
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 We stand with
Dalai Lama.
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 Media, media.
Tell the truth.
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 Love and peace.
It's our culture.
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 Media, media.
Tell the truth.
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 Love and peace.
It's our culture.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
Media, media.
Tell the truth.
Media, media.
Tell the truth.
Media, media.
Tell the truth.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
We stand with. 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 We stand with.
Dalai Lama.
We stand with. We stand with. Long live. Long live. Long live. Media, Love and peace. 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 Long live. Long live. Long live. We stand with Dalai Lama. We stand with. 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 Long live. Long live. Long live. Long live. Long live. Long live.
Dalai Lama. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Excuse me. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth. Tell the truth.
Love and peace.
It's our culture.
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 Long live.
Dalai Lama.
We stand with.
Dalai Lama.
We stand with.
Dalai Lama.
We stand with.
Dalai Lama.
多宝贝是三界这巴拉修，圣贤他们界的我当地这大的我，圣贤他们界东儿大东儿给这大朝解决圣贤南界东儿。掉了门着我解决圣贤南界年日朝大。朝日当那个那我就圣贤他界的我当地这大的我。等我给这大找我姐姐圣贤他界的我没被的我他们找我圣贤他界年日朝大年大朝日当年那我就圣贤他界的我南地这大的我姐姐圣贤他界等我给这大找我姐姐圣贤他界的我等我们找我姐姐圣贤他界年日朝大朝日当年了那我就让这教育扫帚马的我的这样教育世界各地公正一切能给这真正老百姓拿了大家都是这辈子看见广播电视讲座也各自没些个叫他对年轻的人间的我是七个上教他年纪被得到的钱那些真没的场面等到真没的老早当街老大家都是这辈子的那光见广播电视的各自没些个叫他对这些的人间的我是这老帮队一点那种的那我的我讲述到这边别人都叫我啥也拉上这的是叫我的那些都是这边说的那光见广播电视讲座也各自没些个叫他现在人间的我是这老几的是的往人的对些瞧的叫我没上那边的上面没有个上个这是到底期间从到了大家都是这边
Big Chida Risho, Big Miru the Tamil Sayaka, Tindikin Figure. Imina, somebody gets a Tibatake, cut on the Debare. Pain only a Pimi Sayani Nasanjike, Janachum in the DNA, Lenke, Big Miru the Tamil Sayaking Figure. Imina Janachum, Saki was a net and never cut on Debare. Then you get pain only a Pimi, Jada Tuchi Reshitan, Be Miru the Sadi to the Roselatore. Saki was a cut on Debare. Imina Janaki Soshanjoki. Kachanga Jinjoki Timothy Tindu someone and somebody gets a give us a timber. Delia want to be Messiah Tugi. Tin Nayo taking a mare. Janaki David in a Lungu Tinjurinia. Pain on your Jarmati Kubata, Jarmati Kalo, the Kango number. Kosu Sambala Jarmati Kubati Kango Chevina. Pain and Gibiri, Mira Savatimine, Jarmati Yichita Tibat Lagersane. Even I got to be sad to get Tin Nayo Janamuchi Jessica Mare. Janano ya Peki Kuba Tandachi when I be sad to get no Nino Janamuchi. Janayu get Kasi Sanga Sonia Timikina, San in Mesa to Mare. Namatu Zubina Saint John Yebi Piru, Shinche, Sano Shinjate, Kazis Longido. This several Karatin Goyabana, what's a mirror Sabbath in Wine. Jarmuchilia Kuchita Sewa, Ichiteba of 17 Gore. Rapato, the pain on it, Lodinjurin, the Janagi, Jarmuchi, Kubata, Tiso, Kayarti in Ayatanda, Janagi comes in Sunjuki, Kachanga, in Timothy, Janano Tingor, Pin on Tingore, Kocha Sambala, Pin on Mirasava Tisuki, Jarmuchila Duchata, Ishima, Tiama, Chagasangore. Even I pay to Pimi to Mine, Lomo Dinjurin, Jarmuchin Jimmer. Jimatua Tosuki Mira gave us in Giato, Mira Savat in Gia, Flapata Gagin, Chuki Karishio and Nicha, Jaramanti Nitun, the Tendis of Krongi, Gimogini, Gimon Kartini Gregore, Jaramanti in Gia, the Tono in Yoga, Kron Karishio and Tinitun in Gia, the Kazong in Nimutres, Mauba, joined the new to Jaramanti, missing Giagi, Nimuch Chagres. This one's a pain to Gagin the road roots in Sabinata Gugures. Tandanga to Janaki Timothy and the Kusin, the Jack in Tingu or the Jarman Sonjile, Jensani, Amadapinon, Timsugore. This sounds on Tiringa to Pebasa, Chibotum, and someone nearly up Miraconza launching at the Janata, Tanashi Sapisa at the Kategore. Kate Jebal Tine, Sakiba the me, Mingia Mobuji Gatolia, Gunda Sugar Kibor, T. Karitingorna, want to be Mirute. You live because the Tota Chidi of Sabotingore. Dijali Angige, Injinon Tsukashi Shojoji. My dear Tibetan brothers and sisters, foremost of all, let me thank you all for joining this white Khata movement organized by the 5 Tibetan organizations based in Toronto. Today, it has become very important for us Tibetans to show that we are deeply hurt and traumatized, that we are not at all happy with how the world is treating our His Holiness Dalai Lama and Tibetan people for the first few weeks. For the last 60 years, we Tibetans around the world, especially Tibetans inside, have been fighting against the communist Chinese government for the restoration of our independent freedom. Today, sadly, our fight has gotten bigger with major mainstream media and influential figures joining hands with China to have us from the mainstream communities of the world. That is totally gross. Even today, I cannot imagine how the mainstream media world and certain influential person done by Chinese acoustic design to malign His Holiness Dalai Lama and Tibetan culture. Today, the entire world have seen the complete video footage of even in Dharamshala, and now everyone knows that how maliciously edited video clip was originated from China and how it was circulated by Chinese stooges around the world. If today we are shocked with vilification and defaming of our leader, His Holiness Dalai Lama, it is not new. Today we are angered by the attack on the culture and West. It is not new. And today China and stooges has been doing this for last 17 years. What is new this time is the time around the entire media has joined with Chinese government in attacking the statue of His Holiness Dalai Lama of our inner culture. This is really shocking that this is unfair. This is beyond our imagination and tolerance. How long and how much Tibetans are going to suffer and tolerate injustice. 165 Tibetans have self-immolated for calling independence, calling for freedom, calling for return of His Holiness Dalai Lama. Yet the global media failed to record the same. China forced assimilation of 1.5 million Tibetan children in residential school, yet the global media failed to record the same. China collected DNA from 2 million Tibetans, undermined Tibetan identity, yet the global media failed to record the same. In the last 60 years, Tibetans are isolated by CCP. Tibetans cannot travel within their own country without the permission of Chinese government, yet the global media failed to record the same. As if this is nothing new, as if Tibetans are meant to suffer atrocity and injustice. Today, Tibetans, fellow Buddhists, and friends of Tibet and followers His Holiness Dalai Lama protesting across the world, from Ladakh to Arunachal to Sikkim, from Delhi to Dharamsala, from New York to Paris to Toronto, in the support of His Holiness, in support of Tibetan cause. As a Tibetan, it is our responsibility to promote the struggle and to protect dignity and the legacy of His Holiness Dalai Lama. The current episode of attacking against His Holiness Dalai Lama has demonstrated that where the Tibetans have never given up, as our younger generations are successfully taking up the leadership and the responsibility. It gives me immense joy and relief when I see the younger generations are coming out in thousands when it's metamorphosed for Tibetans. I personally thank you for all these aspirations and heartwarming leadership from the young generations. Our task is not yet over. We will definitely not stand down until major news channels, individual reporters, influential persons offer unconditional apologies to His Holiness Dalai Lama and Tibetan people. We will not let our guys down until our country goes see the lights of justice and freedom. I want to say that we Tibetans are ready to defend the legacy and statue of His Holiness Dalai Lama, even cost of our life. We Tibetans are ready to sacrifice our life to defend the statue and the legacy of His Holiness Dalai Lama. We did in the last 17 years. We will do next 100,000 years it takes. Tibetans are ready to defend the legacy and statue of His Holiness Dalai Lama at the cost of our precious life. At the least, we will rise together that Bijalo, long live, long live.
먼저 다윈미당 코베닝 공사 경견 춘부초기 꼴이야 쉬메기 경주 망보치 제대기열에 근데 이네야 먼저 네츠 디네 가르하고 손세나 잠불린 디낭니야 공사 초리야 최동 가긴 시에메다 디네 먼저 믹스에 배바다 히말라야 리기 촐이야 우지 자 전부 텐데스 예바디 소데 전부 가긴 지에메다 먼저 뽑아게 고야 지김바 하세보 고소 더 테랭기 딘저디 균에 예 가르치도 주소세나 예 조보 조모다 미랍 사바체 공사 초기 토기 공바신 먼저 록트초 미 삼바 상보지 차야다 미 야랍지 차야 배기 깨당 리숑 미념 견지 제토긴지 차야라 베진 슈 낭랑랑스니 삼바 디네 비기 슈기야 다 타덴들이야 먼저 공사 초기 남대wo 제시 배기 된다 마시 파도 대시 먼저 미랍 살바트 배기 탑진이야 무투네 경경치기 다 다데 공사초리야 세메 슈바델리야 먼저 미랍 살바트다 믹스에 간준 친든 랭키 롭트트 다 찍도 모기 슈기 내 인지낭리야 찍찍 비스지 수초와지 On behalf of Tibetan Canadian Culture Centre students and youth committee, I wish everyone a good evening. In the past few weeks and going, baseless accusations have been circulating around social media concerning our compassionate leader, His Holiness the 14th Dalai Lama. This affects millions around the world, not only adults but youths as well, as you have seen with our sister in Belgium. However discerning the situation is, we have learned many things. We have learned how much respect His Holiness has in our world, how lucky we are to have him, how proud we should be of him, and how important he is, especially to the Tibetan and Himalayan community. So through this opportunity today, I would like to share a few words from my friends and peers, as we, the younger generation, the future leaders of Tibet, should strive to be an honest person, a compassionate person, a kind person who cares about Tibet enough to preserve and to promote its Tibetan culture and language, also fulfilling His Holiness's wishes. And especially after this situation, I believe that everyone should have the same expectations as me. So in conclusion, under His Holiness's guidance, until Tibet's truth prevails and until the accusations are cleared up, the younger generation, especially TCCC students, will continue to stand our ground and against the injustice. Thank you. Long live! Long live! Long live! We stand with! We stand with! We stand with! Krishna.
Hello everybody, my name is Tenzin Woden and I'm President of Student Council at the Tibetan Canadian Cultural Centre. I'm a lifelong supporter of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. These past 2 weeks have been difficult not just for me but for the entire Tibetan community and the millions of followers of His Holiness the Dalai Lama. It began with a clip that was taken out of context and then spiraled into a frenzy of misinterpretation and ignorance by His Holiness with the malicious intent to defame His Holiness. The Dalai Lama is a well-known global peace icon who has dedicated his entire life to the benefit of human beings and believes in oneness, humanity, peace, non-violence, love, and compassion. He's been recognized with numerous awards, including the prestigious Templeton Prize in 2012. It included a prize money of £1.1 million, of which His Holiness donated $900,000 to Save the Children, an international NGO that aims to end child slavery, exploitation, and provide education. Knowing him my whole life, I never saw the video as inappropriate. Instead, I saw it as a blessing for the child, and His Holiness expressing love and compassion through his playfulness. But the media and some individuals continue to choose to be ignorant. The media is an extremely powerful tool. It keeps people informed on what is happening in our communities, cities, and in our countries. They are tasked with delivering information in an unbiased way so that people are able to decipher it on their own. That is not what has been happening. Media outlets continue to show this one-sided story, so I ask you to listen to our side. Do you think His Holiness, a man that has spent his entire life practicing love and compassion, do something with ill intention? The media instead should be focusing on the cultural genocide that is happening inside of Tibet as I speak. Millions of Tibetan children are being sent to state-funded schools that erase their Tibetan identity. Similar to residential schools in Canada, they are being assimilated and forced to learn Chinese and forget their Tibetan roots. I stand here today to ask the media to apologize for their lack of research. I also ask individuals who have defamed His Holiness to do thorough and unbiased research before slandering and writing an insensitive comment. Long live!
Dalai Lama!
Long live!
Dalai Lama!
Long live!
Dalai Lama!
Tuchina.
So he informed me that the Katengola Chakuli Journey, then Tributan by Savage Jakaji Togo, the song of the This one's a Tijalia, Pijakuchima Jeluton, Canada Jeluton, Thomas Yashone, Kundiki Kobadia, Tosca and the law, Mama Sha.
Sakwa Jangere, Takana Shingi, Kanangazude, CBC, the Zubeki, and the Toronto Nang Yubeki. Senju Gulam Khane, Tanganzu Kazan Yimanisum Nalia, Angazulia, Tsu Deva Cheche, Nizu Dinzutolia, Seshe Shegi, Kokop Chumore, Chezan Di Indu Zambalia, and Seshe Chetuve Tone, Tangazuki, Tumdedi, Kalakanzamji Dosin Tenure, Ine. 단도에게 내가 제발래 단도 내가 제야 망고질 하야 돼요래. 다 개체지 가르쳐야 돼요스나. 예배 차리야 진호 공식경고 전부 초기 아니 내주기 뒤도안에 개디 교란도 다저기 선교 교남기 도안에 아니 저기 자제나리아 시베이나 아니 당국거라 내주디 대용인 거래. 단도 내주 가장 중계디. 재산 대윤도 잠발이야. 대예배 표바당 아니 전문리야 여백에 배워 창만이야 믹스에 배고 쉬어도 가르치 쉬어 있나 다 달람칼이야 친제 안 진호 공식 장군 전부 초기 제발 틀리게 돌이야 아니 저기 잼배 쉬어래 진호 공식 장군 전부 초기 다바도 굴레 교제 단계대 말아도 간조 신대님께 높루 저기 배준 쉬어 나시래 진호 공식 장군 전부 초리야 안 템플턴기 하게 자가디 톱도 잠발이야 뭐 망치지 아니 부구역이 제도리야 아니 우리도 마도신 소리 나와 딘주 자람카 나리야 안 배워 상마 친제 딘주 마 규배 강투도지 제도에 있나 아니 되게 내주 상화디 마망아 된투에다 딘데기 아니 개침에 내주디 개침부 사디기로 제산 대인도 잠발이야 디토리아 창맥이 도나 제제 디토리아 창맥이 못튀니 아니 쑥 개고야 돼 쉬우지 개침부를 했던 것도 이내 내주 쉬고의 개체질이야 아니 다른 게 내주디 진호 공식 경고 전부 초기 롭주 소리야 제가 나니 할람 다와니 마셈스키 젤이야 아니 신에 내주 뭐에 임바디 파 뚝제 아니 내주 춘지지 도세네 당보디 아니 유튜브 나네 도스 귤람 칸네 도시네 젬베슈 이내 칼리 주저 나 젬베슈제 아니 자가기 자과장에 도스 젬베슈제 계제기 내주지 부샤오래 제산 디 용고에 유겐디 마 심주 제베가블이야 아니 도서디 야나 쇼게 미위 예전직다 아니 진호 공사 겸그 전부 초리야 세매슈에 다가 나시기 아니 세년다디 전부린야리야 매바스웨기 미규 독자 쇼치 연주 딘데시 땡요래 제산 연주 땡바디 아니 나란도 창매기 심베토네 나란도 지조 나리야 도서 지지 제제 모투니 나란도 지베기 레던디 둘이야 봉제 아니 남구리야 내주 중자리야 때마대어제 개체백이 내주 표들에 다가나시기 아니 계지 나리야 거기 탑주디 모투니 아니 랑레 케도에다 모투니 아니 계지 딩제 나리야 샤도에 다가나시기 아니 모투니 아니 소소기 슈게 부조리야 거기 내단데 되셔게디 할레베기 개침부 차디 그래 직동국제 계주스 나리야 개미기 시주지 나리야 아니 두두기 어디마 매버소그레스 제제 딘데기 시주지 빼버래 이 가르침의 요르슬라바이나 아니 가서 배바디 두두다 아니 뭐디 진호 공식 겸게 붙여리야 원제 슈제 딘데기 개미기 레시지 직동국제 계주 나리야 도신 빼버래 레구디 사초부 중요 말에 아니 대기 개미기 단대 차리야 이 능시기 다 다리기 내주 되기 돈에 레구디 양자 딘데지 빼기 개미기 채시체되고 재산비인도 말이야 이 채시대리야 안가라서 그거 창매기 동네 제제 아니 채시디 dumde 마투바다 아니 채시디인데기 채시디 나란솔이야 아니 렉베찰이야 표제 제제 나란소 지조디 독서지리 지과디 할레베기 개침물에 재산비인도 안딩에 믹세기 엘리야 창매기 디톨 자로 나스치는 비구슈에이 아니 타마델이야 다 다리기 레구디 나시 zambuling nanglia chino khonsa jamgo chimbu chualiya ani theba yo dengegi ani chige minare daga nashingi ani himalaya rigyo gi minare daga nashingi nangbegi ani chualiya theden chedengi ani digangliya tangaranzo pheba chogi kenkeje ani zambuling nanglia legu mango shuji pedero chesan di zambaliya ani dige changwaliya 마란도 대 산에리 여백이 표바 창맥 잡슈데 아니 얘기 다리기 땡자 디 규체 투체라스지니 쉐이 아니 타던데리아 진호 공스장거 전부초 우지 샤베 계자 때마다 토기 신도 타다 통기 두배 면도 슈기 안데 내 단데 대예 인지나리아 아니 we stand for 나도 잠발리아 아니 창맥이 단데 대 듀얼 여백 꾸바디아 남을 갸제 아니 달라이라마 시 소라나 we stand for We stand for. We stand for. That's all to chena.
슈네 저뱅원의 그 정말라 투지체도 가든 치슈에 어느 개성에만 슈니 그 랭기 빼바낭시기 들이 아 저방나디 그 녀브른 거니 빼버려 아니 근데에서 메마 빼 마시바 몸보 빼자도 정말라 투지체 가든 치용 고거로 와다 라양 그 뒤텔롱원에 다 레버려 어야 그럼 또 당에 마부시에 마고고는 가서 네 니네 말 땀세 ចេញ 몸보여자 네 니네 그 달레돈 다외 그 추숨 쉬어요 네 토마디 가르셔야 있으나 배 나로 수베 그 뱀 사야 죽이나게 신이 자체 메말 네 가르셔야 있으나 가서 젠조 쇼로 요니기 배배 처음에 그 저노 고사 장게 전부 쳐라 무슨아지 그 나부 젠도 노기 레가지 제면 남야 자금에 있으니까 딩에 배 나노기 나로서 샤리 동지 집에 그 배바티 jel이 남야 와 대사 자미기 니마 카시지 나노로 가르쳐요라 웨이버도 유튜브 너네 몽보지는 저런 거사 장게 진부 저기 아니 니자 미 다톨라네 같으나 함세다 록시 제백은데 네가 내가 빠 몽보지다네 배 나로라네 같으나 배면데 제 센터 제제 대자 디젤 달에 세부질 가르쳐는 남이한테 나부차가 말해스 나도 전종로 되니 디제 카tum제 되게 말해스 뒤에 님바딩이 자밀라 너 뒤니셔변 가르쳐야잖아 니마 빠르게 갑도고 말해스 남기 니마 Baraj Kaptu Mares and Kasibushui. Rua Sumbati Karshuesana Himalaya Guriju Naruto Lada Ubig Zombali Yudakal Shubig Shalonig Aning only Tunigan, the Dembele Jajo Langnig, the Jell Tamala Tuchi Garden Cheese, go Gograva. Oh, teacher ye. Ni Shivati Karashuya is enough. Zombali Yobiki Sasho Kawai Yobena Peba Tama Jako Kawadatino Yobina Lion to tell a leverage. Lion to tell a leverage. Kashi Nata Barato, did the schedule Marsoto, nobody say a dealing in Zutunig, Sundati Yanala. Rua Pengasangolo, Pejamil, Tintu Chene, Ditanda Batamas and Matula Teletu Chata Mare. Oh dear Rua Nama the Jello Munemes in the Chuy Kosoa did Shunit Suyorbina. Tarigan di lengi di nolola ngata barato chi darba se je jani de tachu to kopa yonga khasebi rwa otne insa ta mombu chi shu mago ngoniga toro sanen diniga mambu phesa du tida nashi gan zoli chije yutga kawa yonola thama langniga roro soso ke sane ki saku ke gondalan droniga di dintha ta Kasewich Macha Batimason, Drogu Res and a tissue. Kesson and also Shunik Shubi Naruto Toro Jonti, Canada Nalola, Saku Kandimuko Kandi Jibina, Nato Mantunik and the Kasewich Macha Batimason. Oh, yeah, Hamshe Chayagan, and you do the Mate Batimas, Lanky Piggy is and Shushayo, Mantune Pay. Ra, Nato. Dinig Dalai Abuchi Koto Mate Ben Mantuniga, Nima Reche Yunga, Dinig Pay is, Nay, Natinig Yuye, Penyona, number to Perochi. Oh, yeah, Yenguja Chetisum to Chaganig, Monday to Friday. Charge Yuya, a Penyona, Chetisumba Nigga, Nato Chagapatimus, Perochis, Yoniona, Ra. Langi pay, Dayak to say Mara Langurata, or the names are Kanga Mama Perochis and teach you. Then in Tato del Carchuas and Kanju Chiti League, Mone Tunic, the December pay massive against and teach us. Tapu Lochuso Davat the Jagan and Gotten and the Nichi and Lion Girl. Tamich had to get the yellow, Su to get, Delo Zugu to get. Sono Jachabu Tango. There is my own Tijal Loho say, Narotun Dino payment to Chitsia, Yosigur, my own Tomala Loho and Tishueda, Mone, Gala Deni and one Messiah and Tamala Loho and Shuay. Tanda Poo the Kandachi Shigudu. Samala Poo the Jella Tujichi cutting cheese, Monik, Naruto Mipita say love Logor. Terin Dindrich Chevy and also Pebble, Monek Chivek in Yimat, Churati, Lisa Res and Nangaregan got Reva Javanashi, Chasa reception at the Chain Deviola, Chagares and Tishui, the names are Anin Tadundela, Samala Shuela, Jawa Tende Jato Katana de Basho, Jawa Tende Jato Katana de Basho, Jawa Tende Jato Katana de Basho.
Hello, everybody. Thank you all to my Tibetan brothers and sisters and all our supporters who have gathered here in huge number to stand in solidarity with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. My name is Pasang Hamu, a Tibetan Canadian representing Canada Dokam Chishigandu, an organization that was formed in 1958 to resist the Chinese occupation and had played an instrumental role in putting a strong fight against the illegal occupation of Tibet by the communist Chinese regime and consequently safely escorting His Holiness the Dalai Lama to India. Today, I am standing in front of this media house as a Tibetan who received protection and blessing from His Holiness the Dalai Lama since my birth to this day. I am standing here to express to the media like CBC and social media outlet that we Tibetans are deeply traumatized by the gross mistranslation of a spontaneous interaction that took place on February 28, 2023 between the Dalai Lama and a young Indian boy who requested the Dalai Lama for a hug. This show of genuine grandfatherly love was mistranslated by the news media, and over a month after the event, media everywhere ran suggestive headlines generating a firestorm of public responses on children's rights and condemning the Dalai Lama as a pedophile. His guilt was proclaimed triumphantly as truth, but based on what evidence? A sharply cut video entirely devoid of cultural, geopolitical context. Nobody else but Tibetans knows the Dalai Lama the best. Let me tell you, for your information, that the human cause of invasion and war in Tibet devastated Tibetans and their families, leaving many children as orphans. Schools have become an avenue for the Dalai Lama to safeguard the lives of the orphans, shielding them from the precarity of refugee life. In the absence of parents, the Dalai Lama offered children his protection and guidance, becoming their mother, their father, their guardian, and teacher in the process. We have many in this crowd who can vouch for what His Holiness meant for them and what His Holiness has done for their welfare. The Dalai Lama offers them his time, attention, and affection during his frequent visits to schools and stress the importance of love, compassion, and care for others, and for all Tibetans to survive together as a people. Tibetans are not only aware of, but have grown accustomed to, feel blessed by such emblematic affection from the Dalai Lama. Watching outsiders, including the world's media, sexualize the affection and proclaim it to be problematic was so disorienting and so distressing. The interaction that we saw in the full unedited video tracked with their own experiences. This was a familiar affection behavior between Tibetan grandparents and children. We Tibetans have personal experience growing up in our community. Elders in the community who interacted with children often offer genuine verbal and physical affection, including kissing on the lips and sticking out one's tongue. We want to ask which translation of affection is valid. Translation matters, as they have the potential to heal and cause violence. The case in context is the Dalai Lama's actions were made by outsiders, not Tibetans, who described it as weird and disturbing, centering their own lens on Tibetan ones. In order for an outsider to understand the cultural nuances of Tibetan emotions, one needs to spend time learning through cultural emotion. This sort of cultural knowledge is what we Tibetans are trying to share in explaining the Dalai Lama's conduct. The highlight here is how the issue is not just about translating culture, but is more importantly about the current politics. Not only did the news of Dalai Lama generate massive traffic for media and social media platforms, it also became an instant opportunity for bot accounts, the fake accounts, to expose Chinese propaganda on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Capitalist and imperial interests began aligning and targeting the Dalai Lama, a figure who the Chinese government has continually tried to malign ever since his arrival in India. It is today established the origin of the misleading and tailored video clip as Chinese orchestrated smear campaign against the Dalai Lama. Sinister design of fake account that is affiliated to Beijing is also vindicated by the fact that the entire Chinese embassies around the world actively participated in promoting Chinese government agendas and propaganda in the platform as its official mouthpiece. It was circulated widely in China and Tibet for nearly a month with the vicious objective to tarnish the image of the Dalai Lama among the Tibetans and the Chinese. What we do know is how the so-called breaking news was covered by the media like CBC and their reluctance to engage Tibetans. What we want to stress today to those media like CBC, NDTV, Hindustan Times, also Voice of America, to take responsibility for pouncing on a highly edited version of the event that was fed by a fake social media account without exercising any due diligence. It was a scoop for you guys. However, what you have failed to consider is the ramification of such irresponsible, out-of-context coverage of Tibetan people. In colonized Tibet and in China, images of and discussion about the Dalai Lama was banned. Having a photo of him can get you arrested, imprisoned, or worse. However, now the Chinese government is allowing media critics of the Dalai Lama to circulate. But any governmental expectation that the video and the coverage of it would disturb Tibetans are thwarted. Tibetans are reporting they are so happy to see the videos of Dalai Lama without restrictions. While news about the Dalai Lama has been presented explicitly through the lens of the culture and sexuality, there has been little acknowledgement of its geopolitical implications. Chinese officials are arresting Tibetans who speak out in support of the Dalai Lama, while reports of teachers and students taunting Tibetan children at schools in the West are growing. So CBC should take note of that. These are the real-life ramifications of this transnational event. Impacts on the lives of Tibetan people living under the Chinese occupation and across the world should be considered. For that, alongside cultural translations of acts of affection, we need geopolitical analysis of political violence. It is essential to note that the event has produced massive trauma for the Tibetan community, which remains steadfast in their reverence of the Dalai Lama. Not because they must, but because they have the context of the act of affection from their own childhood experience. In summary, what we would like to urge media like CBC's and other news outlets, that any media coverage you do should include comprehensive and contextualized presentations that includes the translation and the perspectives of the subjects that you're covering. In this context, Tibetan people's narratives and nuances should be taken into account. We demand that a correction is made about this misleading coverage, sexualizing a beautiful and humane interaction that took place between the Dalai Lama and the young child in an open public gathering. A strong corrective measure be taken to rectify the gross character assassination of His Holiness the Dalai Lama in the news media. Secondly, Tibetans are living under the illegal occupation of Communist China since 1950s. There is a report of gross violation of human rights of Tibetans under the colonial Chinese regime. One of the most pressing issues facing us today, that is around millions of Tibetan minority children are being affected by Chinese government policies aimed at cultural, religious, and linguistic assimilation through a residential school system. Media should do a thorough investigation into this matter and circulate globally to bring awareness about the plight of Tibetan children. Thirdly, the integrity of the media and the journalism should be maintained by doing an independent investigation into any matters of coverage. Stop pouncing on news that are fake by fake social media accounts. Last but not the least, the geopolitical ramification of any news coverage should be considered at all times. Thank you so much. Thank you everybody for coming in such a great numbers. Your solidarity and support counts. Long live! Long live! Long live! We stand with! We stand with! We stand with! Tachana.
We're gathered here today as Tibetan people and allies who deeply want the truth to be heard. The media, as we know, plays a significant role in how a narrative around an event is formed and can shift public perception dramatically. Regretfully, most media outlets chose to share a snippet of the interaction between His Holiness and a young boy, providing little to no context, which only sensationalized the event and clouded public perception of His Holiness. I want to clarify and emphasize that Tibetans are and will always be proponents of freedom of press. With Tibetans inside Tibet living in a media black hole with access solely to Chinese propaganda, where an image of His Holiness is banned and any dissenting voices are deeply silenced, Tibetans especially are deeply mindful of the importance of freedom of speech, freedom of thought and expression. However, these freedoms should be exercised with responsibilities. The responsibility to prevent the spread of misinformation, to ensure a man who has dedicated his life to spreading peace and compassion isn't baselessly slandered, and with a responsibility to mitigate the marginalization of an already vulnerable community. A community that has faced 64 years of colonization, of genocide and displacement. Our language, culture, religion, and way of being is currently under attack by the Chinese government, and the most effective way for the CCP to target Tibetans is by targeting His Holiness. He's more than a religious and political leader for us. He's our hope, our strength, our sun beyond the clouds. And that is why, despite decades of scrutiny, the Dalai Lama has never been maligned by Chinese propaganda. He has continued his work of spreading peace and compassion around the globe. I truly hope that we do not let an authoritarian regime win this time. We cannot let the CCP undermine and discredit His Holiness, discredit our non-violent, peaceful movement for freedom and justice. At this time, it is more important than ever that we stand with the Dalai Lama. We stand with Dalai Lama. We stand with Dalai Lama. We stand with Dalai Lama. Thank you.
And why the past 2 weeks have been so traumatic to us, I want to share a few things we experienced and are experiencing as a collective. As we saw the global media cover a heavily edited clip, manipulated for clickbait headlines, and stripped of cultural and contextual considerations, Tibetans witnessed a violence that was both familiar and new. When the world rushed to pronounce that the interaction between His Holiness the Dalai Lama and the young Indian boy was motivated by harm, it was not only an attack on His Holiness and his lifelong legacy of spreading and practicing his messages of love, compassion, and world peace. It was also an attack on our way of being in this world. In great distress, day and night, we had to justify our way of being. That as Tibetans, what we saw in that interaction is a familiar, affectionate behavior between young kids and grandparent figure in our community. Those who were unconvinced by the cultural context of this interaction, they asked us for evidence, as if it's too audacious for Tibetans to be trusted on to speak about the Tibetan culture. Those who were convinced by the cultural context and yet applied their foreign lens on Tibetan culture declared that ours is backwards, is disgusting, and has no place in the so-called modern world. As if our colonizer China, using the same rhetoric in its attempts to annihilate our culture and identity, was not enough. Then there were those who have always denied our agency as a people and our right to self-determination, grabbed this opportunity to repeat their violent rhetoric that our quote-unquote backward culture deserved invasion and colonization. In addition to witnessing such profound harm on virtual spaces, we're now witnessing real-life implications. Our young kids are being bullied and harassed in schools by their peers and teachers for their faith in His Holiness the Dalai Lama. Our community is having to convene supportive listening spaces and panel discussions with health professionals to discuss how we can cope with the collective trauma we have experienced in the past 2 weeks and how we can mitigate the harm. Racism, ethnocentrism, colonial violence, these are the impacts of careless coverage and dissemination of a few seconds of heavily edited clip manipulated for clickbait headlines and sensationalism. In words of a Tibetan sister, Tenzin Pema, quote, all because one day the world decided to view an incident, such a pure, unadulterated act of love, compassion, and faith in our culture through their base-minded lens, unquote. For non-Tibetans who are outsiders to our community, it might be too much of an ask to understand the cultural nuances of who we are as a people. But from this episode, what we do ask is to pause, think, listen, and trust the people of the community before passing a judgment about them. Because it might cost you a few minutes of research, but it will save a marginalized community from further marginalization. And to media, do your journalistic due diligence of investigation and providing full context to a story. Because the impacts of failing to do so have been devastating for a community already experiencing ongoing colonization in our homeland and the precarity of exilehood. My fellow Tibetans, yes, all of this is so unfair. We didn't deserve to go through all of this. But as with every obstacle, we will overcome this one too. And we will remain steadfast in our fight against the Chinese illegal colonial occupation of Tibet, where the real focus on Tibet needs to be. Pegelo! Pegelo!